I have got so much work to do today, and I normally try and get one kind of full-ish day, 4 or 5 hours on the allotment a week where I actually do real work, and one day again sort of 3 or 4 hours probably when I do the harvest. And then the rest of it for me is, you know, basically half an hour in the morning, half an hour at night sort of thing, just to keep things ticking over. But lots of jobs to get through today, so I thought I would just give you a quick example of a typical allotment day for me, and let's get on. So the first job of the day is watering, and I'm feeding with this organic tomato fertiliser and giving everything this, so that the cucumbers and the peppers as well. But I don't really like, you know, putting a little bit in here in each watering can, all that sort of thing. So I just tend to just sort of glug it into there a bit and give it a mix around. And then every time I water, I'm just giving everything a dilute feed. So every day is feeding day for my plants. So I can't say this is a tried and true method, but it's certainly easy. So next I've got these Christmas potatoes that I want to get planted, and I'm going to plant them in here. This is where I had a harvest of potatoes already, and I've only got this bed until October, and then it needs replanting with winter salads, and so that's why I started them in pots, so it gives them a month's head start. So I'm obviously going to bury these a little bit deeper than they are at the moment and recondition this bed. So I've dug some nice big holes. I don't want them too deep. I will sort of earth them up a little bit probably. Found that nice potato. Put in a mix of bloodfish and bone and 6X manure. And again, I don't want to put too much nutrition in here because, you know, it was fairly well fertilised for the previous crop of potatoes, and there's bound to be some of that left in there. So I managed to break one of them off. Well, actually the wind broke it off. I still planted the plant there, and then there's 4 others, and hopefully they'll be okay. I mean, obviously some of these are a bit big. Ideally I would have planted them out last week, but the weather was just so foul I didn't want to do it, and we kept having blight warnings as well. I'm going to unsubscribe from that blight watch. It just causes me anxiety. I mean, I'm not going to do anything about a blight warning. I'm not going to spray the plants or anything. So I'm not really sure what benefit it's giving me other than worrying me that the plants might get blight. So yeah, I'd rather just proceed in blissful ignorance and find out that I've got blight when I see it on the leaves. So I just wanted to show you. So this is the bed we planted last week. And first, the good news, the carrots have germinated. So we've got 500 carrots down there, and the leeks look really good. And I'd say 95% of the beetroot look like they've taken well. So just a few beetroot down the far end that were really poor quality modules with really poor root systems, and they didn't. The brassicas, however, have really been eaten. And it looks a bit to me like birds, and so I've netted them. And ideally I wouldn't have netted them quite this soon because it just lets me get in easily just to do a final weed and replace any beetroot that failed and things like that. But anyway, I have had to net them. And the challenge was how to net that far side and how to secure the nets. And so what I did was I just dropped the net down behind the fence pins, and I'll put a little diagram up to show you how I did it because I was quite pleased with it. And then I just looped it round at the bottom and secured it with some tile battens. And it's worked really well. So this is what I used for my potatoes last year. It worked really nicely. Evergreen Irish multi-purpose compost, and the reason I use this peat compost is because I mean it's slightly acid, which is what potatoes like, but also because I like to reuse it next year in early spring to germinate my carrots. They're actually down there, but yeah, I use it for this, and I only put it in like a centimetre or maybe 1.5 centimetres, something like that, layer on top of the ground. It's just nice and fine and water retentive, and the carrots really like it, so I tend to get really good germination, although there's obviously a few spots where I didn't. The reason I do that is because my compost is really rough that I use to mulch the beds. It's a bit too rough for carrots, so most of my potatoes are going in these. I think they're 15 litres, 10 or 15 litres, something like that. They're a little bit bigger than the standard flower bucket from the supermarket, although we'll use a few of those as well. Yeah, I get a really good crop of those. I've got 12 of those, that's enough for 3 months supply. We start eating these in February, so basically it's February, March and April's supply. We start harvesting our new season potatoes about the 3rd week in April, something like that, so just sees us through. And we'll have some bigger containers with the potatoes in for January and December, and the ones that I've just shown you that went in the ground are for November, October and November. So these are the potatoes. These are fine, there's no need to chit potatoes at this time of year. They grow so fast anyway, it's completely pointless. And yeah, they're looking pretty good. These are from DT Brown, Charlotte's, and I will be saving some of these in the fridge for my early starts next year, just because I can't always guarantee I can get potatoes early enough for me if I don't do that. So you do need to add a bit of extra feed. In my case, it's my standard mix: bloodfish and bone meal and 6x manure or Marshall's Organic Extra, bit of seaweed meal, and only half a handful I put in at the bottom, and then the other half a handful about 6 inches up. Otherwise, if you want any more than that, just for one tuber, then you're just growing more foliage, and you probably spend more on fertiliser than the value of the potatoes that you harvest. So there we go. It's 4 months supply. And I've also done 2 carrot boxes. We'll do some more carrots in October, but we'll just do a few in August as well. But the main batch will be in October in bigger containers, and they're the ones that will just see us through kind of the March-April period until we start harvesting in May from the ground. So I used to store my Christmas potatoes over here, a long way away from the water, which was pretty stupid. I always forgot about them, forgot watering them. So now I've made this little storage area down here. It's nice and sheltered from the wind, which is kind of important when you've got things in such small containers. They do get battered around a bit. So these get kind of protection from most directions here, and they're right next to my dip tanks. So they're really easy, and this is kind of the most trod path on the site, and so they never get neglected. Well, that's the theory anyway. So now I'm going to weed and thin out these carrots. These are my last batch of carrots, so these are the they're the early and mid-winter carrots, and ironically, because these are much further on, but that's just the variety, these are the late winter carrots down there. So when I do the thinning, I spray the whole kind of area with garlic spray in a hope to kind of confuse the carrot fly. And I'm going to water in a nematode which kills the carrot fly larvae, but it also kills the onion fly larvae, and 10% of our shallots got onion fly, so I'm slightly nervous about my main crop getting onion fly as well, so I'll be watering those and it just so happens that it's the same nematode mix for the carrot fly, so I might as well water that in, and then I'll put the nets on like that. So this is the nematode that I'm using, and it's quite multi-purpose. It works against loads of different things, which is pretty useful. It used to be such a pain to apply because it would block up the holes in the rows, and so I bought one of these £1 from Wilko and just drilled loads of big holes in it, and it looks like a real mess, but it works brilliantly now. What a difference. No blocking up at all. I used to spend half the time unblocking the rows, but yeah, brilliant. So every net I do is the same, basically just a fence pin and overlapping canes, and if I've got them, eye savers, and I've kind of run out of eye savers, so I just have to be careful putting the nets on. But that's all done now, thinned out and nematoded. And that's the net on. I just use these little spring clips, and it's kind of Enviromesh grade. It's not actually Enviromesh, it's a bit cheaper, rips a little bit easier, but it's not too bad, it'll do the job. Nets that I use you can find in the FAQ document that's linked in the description of this video. Now I do my early strawberries in these hanging baskets, and last year I made the mistake of filling them with commercial compost, and it was so kind of fluffy that it just compressed away to nothing basically over a few weeks. So now I'm going to use my own homemade compost instead and get these filled up. So this is what's left of the El Santa strawberry bed. I'm clearing this to make way for claret, purple sprouting broccoli and cauliflowers. And so these strawberries, which are now in their second year, are going in the pots, which they'll eventually end up in the polytunnel as early strawberries. So there's all my early strawberries finished. Now I think I said that these were 2 years old. They're not 2 years old, they're last year's runners, so they will be 2 years old next year when I harvest them in the polytunnel. Now these pots are too heavy to lift with one hand, but anyway, at the bottom of them they've got little pegs that go up that create water reservoirs at the bottom of the pots. Now I've taken the water reservoirs out, I don't like them, I like to just have more compost in there. The downside is of those water reservoirs that they do get pretty sodden, these pots, especially in winter, so I'll have to cover them, and I'll probably put them in the little greenhouse down there. I do want them to get a few frosts, but that's easily achieved, just leave the greenhouse door open on frosty nights. And then I'll take them in the polytunnel and they'll go up here in the roof. They have these plastic hangers which are really great, and they just clip on to the pots. They're as cheap as chips, these pots, but I really like them. Anyway, they just go in the roof. I've got loads of them up here at the moment. This one's got a cucumber in it. Most of them have got cucamelons. To keep these cucamelons going down, trailing down like this is how I want them. They always want to climb, but once you get enough weight on them, then they're okay. They just hang down okay. But when they're young shoots like this, you just have to kind of encourage them to go down. And then next up, I've actually lost the video of this, so I've had to reshoot it. I'm just looking for side shoots, and so I'm taking these big side shoots off, bigger than this one ideally, and just potting them up. And so I've got quite a few now kind of potted up, and growing quite nicely, and some down here, and hopefully these will be nice big plants come October time, when the all the rest of the tomatoes in the beds have been taken out, and my supply will then be from these containers. I've got a nice succession of containers here, and some of them have got really nice side shoots like this one, which I will be potting on soon. But I'm not really sure on the wisdom of leaving your side shoots to grow nice and big, but it just seems to me that you can get quite a nice big plant by letting the side shoot grow using the strength of the parent plant before you break it off and plant it up. I've got another video on this anyway, so I'll leave it there. Hope you like this quick video. My name's Steve, this is the Seaside Allotment channel, and I'll see you soon.